Yeah, we're good, yeah.
The Tenth Clew. Characters. The Continental Op, a private detective for the Continental Detective Agency. No one knows her real name. Charles Gamford, a wealthy young man. Ogar, a police detective. Creta Dexter, a beautiful young woman. Madden Dexter, Creta's older brother. Smith, a muscular young man. Butler. Man. Narrator. The narrator is the Continental Op looking back on the case.
Introduction.
The heroes in Dashiell Hammett's detective stories are called hard-boiled, like an egg that has been boiled too long. They are tough and resilient. Tough, hard-boiled heroes are still popular in crime movies and books around the world. The Tenth Clew, Hammett spelled the word clue an old-fashioned way, is a classic hard-boiled detective story. The hero, a fellow who works for the Continental Detective Agency, never tells us her own name. She's simply known as the Continental Op, short for operative, which is another word for worker. She's just a girl trying to do her job, a job that involves murder and mystery.
Scene 1.
It was just after 9 o'clock in the evening when I arrived at the Gamford house. A butler met me at the door.
Mr. Leopold Ganford is not home, but his son Charles is available if you would care to see him.
No, I had an appointment with Mr. Leopold Gamford for 9 or a little after. No doubt he'll be back soon. I'll wait for him.
Very well, ma'am. You may wait in the library.
I waited for an hour, then another. The clock somewhere had just begun to strike 11 when a young man came into the room.
My father hasn't returned yet. I'm sorry you've been kept waiting. Is there anything I can do for you? I'm Charles Gamford.
No, thank you. I'll get in touch with your father tomorrow.
Charles was showing me to the door when the telephone rang. His back was to me when he answered it.
Yes? Yes? What?
He turned to me, his face pale with shock.
Father's dead. Killed!
Where? How?
I don't know. There's the police. They want me to come down at once. If you'll pardon me.
Mr. Gamford, I'm a detective for the Continental Detective Agency. Your father called up this afternoon and asked that a detective be sent to him tonight. He said his life has been threatened. He had not officially hired us, though, so...
I'm hiring you right now. If the police haven't already caught the killer, I want you to do everything possible to catch him.
All right, let's get down to police headquarters. Scene 2.
Several detectives were waiting for us when we reached police headquarters. The officer in charge was named Ogar. We had worked on 2 or 3 jobs together and hit it off excellently. We met in a small office. Spread out on the desk were a dozen or so things.
Mr. Gamboa, I want you to look these things over carefully and pick out the ones that belong to your father.
I made a list of the things on the table while Charles Gamford made his selections.
An empty jewel case, a memo book, 3 letters addressed to the dead man, a bunch of keys, a pen, 2 handkerchiefs, 2 bullets, a gold watch, 2 black wallets, some money, and a typewriter.
This watch, pen, memo book, letters, and wallet all belong to my father.
Are you sure none of these other things are his?
No, I'm not certain, but I've never seen anything before.
Is anything that your father usually carried with him missing from among these things?
No, these are all the things he would carry with him.
At what time did he leave the house tonight?
Before 7:30. I'm not sure, but I suppose he was going to call on Miss Dexter.
Who is she?
She's, well, father was on very friendly terms with Miss Dexter and her brother. He usually visited them in the evening. I believe father was a tender narrator.
What do you know about the Dexters?
Not much. Father got to know them about 6 months ago. Miss Dexter, her first name is Creta, is about 23 years old. Her brother Matt is about 5 years older. He's in New York now. My father sent him there on some business.
Did your father tell you he was going to marry Miss Dexter?
No, but I feared as much.
What do you mean, feared?
I don't want to make you suspect them. I'm sure they had nothing to do with my father's murder, but I didn't especially like them. I thought they were just after my father's money.
What about your father's will?
The last will I saw left everything to me and my wife. He may have made a new will. I don't really know.
We'll look into that. Any other questions you want to ask?
Yes. Mr. Gamford, Did your father ever tell you anything about a man named Emile Bonfils?
No.
Was your father ever in Paris?
Yes, he went there on business.
Why do you ask?
Because Leopold Gambort called our agency this afternoon to say he had received a letter from a man named Emile Bonfils. Bonfils claimed they had met in Paris and threatened to kill Leopold Gambort. That's why I was calling on Mr. Gambort, to protect him from Emile Bonfils.
We let Charles Gambort go.
Don't you think it's time you loosened up and told me the facts of the case?
I guess so. A grocer named Lagerquist was driving through Golden Gate Park tonight. He passed a car parked on a dark road. Lagerquist thought the guy sitting behind the wheel looked odd, so he reported it to a patrolman. The patrolman investigated and found Leopold Gambort behind the wheel of the car dead. He had been smashed in the head by this.
The typewriter?
Yes, and all of this stuff on the desk was scattered about in the car. Look at this letter we found in the car.
Gambort, I want what is mine. 6,000 miles in 21 years is not enough to hide you from the victim of your treachery. I want what you have stole. Signed, Emile Bonfils.
That must be the letter that made the dead man call you.
Has to be. Did you find anything else in the car that's not on the desk?
This.
It was a tuft of blonde hair.
This has been cut from someone's head. It wasn't pulled out.
That's right, and this was in one of the wallets.
It was a sheet of paper. Neatly typed on it were the names and addresses of 6 people. The addresses were for cities all across the United States. The first name on the list was Leopold Gambort.
This could be a list of potential murder victims.
That's what I thought.
Anything else?
Only this. The dead man's left shoe was missing.
This is the screwiest murder I ever saw.
What do you think we should do?
I think we should find Mr. Emile Bonfils. I'll have our agency's detective in Paris start looking on that end.
Good idea. In the meantime, I'll get in touch with all the people on this list. It's too late for Leopold Gambort, but maybe we can prevent another murder.
Scene 4.
The next morning, I returned to Ogar's office. On the desk were a shoe, some rumpled newspaper, and a tiny key.
What are these? Souvenirs?
Might as well be. They were found in the lobby of a hotel downtown this morning. This is Gambort's missing shoe. It was wrapped up in the newspaper. Look, the heel is missing. This key was inside the shoe.
What does the key open?
Your guess is as good as mine.
This newspaper is from Philadelphia.
Yeah, but it was on sale at the hotel newsstand.
Nothing about this case adds up.
I agree. While we wait to see if your man in Paris can give us a lead on Emile Bonfils, what do you say we pay a visit to the dead man's girlfriend?
That's just what I was going to suggest. Scene 5.
We went to the Dexter's apartment. It was a few blocks from the Gambort house. Frida Dexter was a pretty cat-like young woman.
Mr. Gambort and I would have been married the day after tomorrow.
His son didn't tell us that.
He didn't know. He would not have approved of our marriage. Neither did my brother Madden. That's why Leopold sent him to New York on business, to get Madden out of the way until we were on our honeymoon.
Did Leopold Gambort visit you last night?
No, I was expecting him about 8. When he was late, I called his house. The butler told me Leopold had left earlier, but he never arrived. Then this morning, I saw the newspapers.
She bit her lip as if holding back a sob. It was the only emotion she showed.
Did Leopold ever mention to you that his life had been threatened?
No.
Do you know Emile Bonfils?
No.
At what hotel is your brother staying in New York?
A flash of fear passed over her pretty face.
I don't know.
When did he leave San Francisco?
4 days ago. He was traveling by train, of course.
That means if he is in New York now, then it would be impossible for him to have been in San Francisco last night.
I spoke with Leopold Gambort's lawyer this morning. Miss Dexter, did you know he was changing his will? He wanted to leave you half of his fortune.
Leopold had mentioned something like that, but I thought he had not signed the new will yet.
That's right. The old one is still in effect. That means his son is going to get all the money, and he won't get a dime.
Scene 6.
Ogar and I returned to the office, disappointed.
She knew that the new will was not signed. That means she had no motive for killing the old man.
I agree. Her brother, who is in New York, is also in the clear since it's physically impossible for him to have been here.
Any luck tracking down Emile Bonfils?
None. Our man in Paris says he can't find any trace of anyone by that name.
And we've been checking out the other names on this list of victims we found in the car. Get this, most of them don't exist.
You're kidding. The people don't exist?
Not only that, the addresses don't either. They're all made up. This is one funny case.
It is. We got 9 clues and none of them add up to a thing. Let's go over them.
Clue number 1. The murdered man called up your detective agency to say he had received a threatening letter from a man named Emil Bonfils.
Number 2. The man was killed with this typewriter, as screwy a weapon as you can hope to find.
Number 3. There were 2 bullets in the car.
Number 4. There was also an empty jewel case.
Number 5. We also found a bunch of yellow hair.
Number 6. The dead man's shoe was missing.
Number 7. 2 wallets were in the car.
Number 8. This list of names was inside of one of the wallets.
Number 9. The missing shoe turned up in a hotel lobby along with a rusty old key the next day.
What does it all mean?
Here's what I think. I think this Emil Bonfils picked up Leopold last night in a car and took him to the park. Then he bashed Leopold in the noodle with this typewriter, dropped the bullets in jewelry case, and then stole the man's shoe. But what about this list of names? It doesn't make any sense.
You're right, it doesn't make sense. And if those names are all fake, I'll bet the rest of those clues are cooked up too.
But why?
Whoever left these clues wants us to look for Emil Bonfils. The clues point to a man from Paris with light hair who carries a gun and had a grudge against Leopold Ganfort. It's all a bum steer. From now on, I'm going to look for someone just the opposite of who these clues point to.
Stop. You be the detective. If all these clues are red herrings intended to distract you from the real criminal, then whom do you think the prime suspect is? Charles Ganfort, who inherited all of his father's money, Creta Dexter, who planned to marry the murdered man, Madden Dexter, who opposed his sister's marriage, or could there likely be some other suspect? Take a minute or so to fill out who you think it is on the ticket you received when you walked in. Think about whom you think is most suspicious. List the suspect's motives and their alibis. Think about how you would proceed if you were the detective, then continue watching.
Give you guys a little bit of time to think about that.
Let me make a
Scene 7.
A few days later, Madden Dexter was due back from New York. His train was passing through Sacramento. I had a few questions for Madden, so I went to Sacramento and boarded his train there. I gave the porter my card and told him to deliver it to Madden Dexter. I followed the porter through the train as he called out the name. Near the rear of the train, a slim, shifty-looking young man looked up.
I'm Madden Dexter.
I sat next to him and smiled.
I suppose you want to see me about Mr. Gantfort's death.
That's right. I have a few questions.
I'm happy to help. But I already told the detectives in New York everything I know.
I have a few special questions. They're about your sister.
I'm sure she had nothing to do with it.
That's good to hear, but I was wondering whether or not she had any old boyfriends who might not be so innocent.
Boyfriends?
That's right. She's a very pretty young woman. I was wondering if she had any boyfriends who might be jealous she was planning to marry an older man like Mr. Ganfort.
I'm quite certain that my sister never dated another man in her entire life.
Scene 8.
I underestimated Madden Dexter. I thought he would crack under questioning. But for the entire trip, he stuck by his story. His sister had no ex-boyfriends, he said. I was still suspicious since his nervousness made me sure that Madden was covering up for someone.
Well, the train stops here, in Oakland. We'll have to take the ferry across the bay to San Francisco.
Won't you leave me alone?
Just a few more questions.
It was a dark, wet, foggy night. I followed Madden onto the crowded ferry boat, who walked up to a tall, muscular young man wearing an overcoat.
Hello, Smith.
Who's your friend?
She's a detective.
I immediately knew something was up. Before I could do anything, though, Smith was standing next to me. Something dug into my ribs. I looked down. Smith had a gun aimed point blank at my heart.
Let's go to the upper deck.
Are you sure? It's cold and wet up there.
Move.
I went up to the top deck of the ferry boat. It was empty beneath the dark, foggy skies. but this time we were in the middle of San Francisco Bay.
Keep moving, let's go someplace quiet.
He prodded me to the rail at the stern of the boat. Suddenly, the entire back of my head burned with sudden fire. The tiny points of light glittered with the blackness of the grew larger, and came rushing toward me.
Scene 9. Help! Help!
Then everything went black.
Scene 10.
I opened my eyes.
Where am I?
Sausalito, we fished you at the bay when we passed by in the ferry. You're lucky to be alive. Just sit quiet till the ambulance shows up.
When's the next boat leave for San Francisco?
5 minutes.
I've got to be on that boat.
An hour later, I was in my apartment, changing into dry clothes. I got on the phone. My first call was to Charles Gambler.
What can I do for you?
Madden Dexter is back from New York.
I know. I spoke to him over the phone. We're going to meet tomorrow to discuss business he did for father in New York.
Call him back and tell him you have to see him tonight.
Why?
I'll explain later. Meet me outside of his apartment in a half hour.
Next, I called Ogar. I explained what happened to me on the ferry.
It looks to me like this Mr. Smith is our man. He must be an old flame of Creta Dexter.
That's what I figure. Let's hope he's still in town.
Soon I met Charles Gambler and Ogar in the lobby of the Dexter's apartment building. Charles rang the intercom.
Who is it?
Creta, it's me. Here's your brother.
Come on up.
We made our way to the Dexter's apartment. I knocked on the door. It swung open and I stood face to face with
Smith!
You, I thought I finished you off on the boat.
He reached into his coat, but before he could grab his gun, I shoved him. He fell. Over. In a flash, Ogar and I had him pinned.
Here's the killer. Smith.
Smith? Who is Smith?
This man.
But this man Dexter.
Scene 11.
A few minutes later, Ogar and I were questioning the man who had pushed me into the harbor. The man who turned out to be Madden Dexter.
Anything I have to say, I'll say it.
Anything I have to say, I'll say to my lawyer. Sorry, bud.
It's alright. I got it all figured out, I guess.
Yeah?
Sure. Madden Dexter had it in for Mr. Gambler. When the old man sent him to New York on business, he got someone else, that fellow he met on the train, to go in his place. Then Madden set up the crime by sending the fake letter from Bonfils. After committing the murder, he left those other fake clues. All along, he had the perfect alibi for the crime. He was allegedly in New York, all the while he was here in San Francisco killing his sister's fiancé.
He's not my brother.
You keep quiet.
Why should I? Me and Madden, we're not brother and sister. We're con artists. We hit on old Mr. Gambler thinking we could swindle him.
I knew you were up to something.
Yeah? Well, something funny happened along the way. The old guy fell in love with me.
Don't make me sick.
He did, and I fell for him too. We really were going to get married.
You were just trying to cut me out of the action.
I would have taken care of you, but you're so greedy. You couldn't stand to see me quit the con game.
Who was the guy who went to New York posing as your brother?
I'll bet anything it was Evan Felter. He's an old partner of ours. Odds are he's already hiding out in LA somewhere.
And he was. A few months later, Felter was in jail for fraud. Madden Dexter was convicted of murder. Charles Gambler proved to be a decent fellow. He gave half of his father's fortune to Creta Dexter since that's how the old man wanted it. And Creta Dexter, she's a very respectful woman now. I'm glad to be free of the con game.
Okay, everyone up here. Evan, you want to come in? Okay.
Take out your tickets that you filled out earlier. Did you guess right? Were you surprised by the answer? If you did end up marking the right answer, you have a prize waiting for you when you walk out. Thank you for coming and have a good day.
How many guests? How many guests Madden Dexter? Okay, with that said, thank you. And I'd like to, again, I want to say something is, I wasn't supposed to play this role, but you know, sicknesses happen, everything like that. But the kids, amazing, absolutely amazing. All the ideas were theirs. I know that yesterday we recognized Brittany. I would like to recognize, and you all did. Liam running the show. I mean, he would come early, come whatever. We talk, and all the things that he did and created was great. I was gonna say, Taylor, when this part where I smashed her over the head, she wanted to bring in a small pool. They feel like she wanted to fall in water. She says to me the other day, she says, "Is that still off the table?" Yeah, it's off the table. We're not falling in a small pool. The things they asked to do, Aria sat back there, created that. Callie came up with our tickets and the prize. I don't want to leave anybody out. I was gonna say, everyone, the things we did. Nehemiah, thank you for jumping in. Emma created the lines that she said for what she needed to do. I could have asked for a better group of kids to work with, and it was nice because that group, you didn't know what we were doing, we didn't know what they were doing. That's what made this whole thing great. We separated rooms, and hopefully we can do something similar to this again, and maybe bring a group where we can present this. I know nervous when I said this to them, to the school, which I don't know how well, I know they know, this was tough enough. So we want to thank you guys for being here. And again, if you did guess correctly, Callie will have a gift for you on the way out. And if you don't, maybe she will. Let's see how friendly she is. But thank you guys for being here. Thank you, Mr. McNiff True, for being here also.